everything happens in its own time for a purpose. You don't realize it as it's happening. You always realize it in the rearview mirror.
Tell us about the journey of when they're like, I mean, did you know once you were diagnosed, did you know or think you would ever have to be on the transplant list? Was that always a potential?
So when I was first diagnosed, that they had already started the workup. At that time, 16 years ago, they were thinking I may need a heart transplant, but they put me on a new medication. And fortunately, my doctor's goal was to keep me alive with my heart for as long as he could, because the quality of life at that time would have been better with my heart versus being a transplant recipient. And that was in 2000. Yeah. And so my heart hadn't progressed to the point where my quality of life would be better with a transplant versus my own heart. And my doctor, honestly, after the fact, said I was honestly concerned that with how you would react after the transplant, because you were so healthy in your mind before that I wasn't sure how all the medication would progress with you. And so, but I was very, very fortunate, and I honestly was so blessed that I only had to wait. So I was put on a list on May 20th, and I received my heart August 27th. So, and it's unheard of. And so, and I tell you, when you look back and you think of all the miracles that were just set up along the way, when my doctor called me that morning at 5 a.m., he's like, this heart was supposed to go somewhere else, but it wasn't, we weren't able to coordinate it. Are you in town? And this question is, should have always been in town, but I always went out of town, and he knew me a little too well to know that I didn't follow rules. And I was like, yeah, I'm in town. And he's like, I need you to get to the hospital right away. And my husband was actually out of town, and he drove like a bat out of hell to come back from Island Park and to be there. But that's like it. There's so many, and I think about too the medical technology that's improved from 2000 to 2016, and how many transplants have taken place throughout that time. That I just am. There's so many, and I couldn't have had my son had I had the transplant in 2000, and that was a miracle in itself to be able to have him 3 years later. So there's so many things that when you look back, you realize everything happens in its own time for a purpose. And you don't realize it as it's happening. You always realize it in the rearview mirror.
It's so perfect. It just is so perfect. And we just need to honor the perfectness of how it all plays out.
Yeah. And Claire, one of the things I admire about you so much is just your outlook on life and your gratitude that you express every day. Like anybody who knows you, who has worked with you, or I'm sure knows you personally, I'm sure family, friends, some of your quotes that I saw on your LinkedIn, which I love, you had a couple that I love, but you wrote, and I can't remember where I saw it, it says, love life and it will love you back. Sure. And I love that. I was like, of course she said that. Of course she had that on there. And then I also loved in one of your bios, you had, the attitude is everything. And you coach your sales team rather than manage them. And you're constantly like, watching you go through that journey. I remember watching when you went in, and you posted different things. And what was that feeling to wake up and know you have a new heart? What was that like?
Honestly, first of all, when they were like taking the tube out and all that, my first response was, did I get my new heart? Because when they open up the donor and they open you up, it's not always going to happen. And so you don't know until they've actually, so they take a look at all the blood work and the history of the donor. But until they actually open up the body, they don't know for sure that it's going to be the right heart.
And going in, that's unbelievable that you're going in knowing there's this risk, not risk, but this chance that it is a risk.
Yeah.
But the hope that you're going to get it and you may not.
Well, and that's why I had a friend that I had watched my son while I went to the hospital to get it. And she posted it on Facebook. And now, mind you, bless her heart, she meant it for the right reasons because she wanted people to pray. But no one in my family knew except for my immediate family. My mom, my brothers, and my husband and my son were the only ones that knew that I was even waiting for a heart. There were there weren't as many people that even knew I had a heart issue for 16 years. And so I have family across the world. And so my mom was getting calls from Australia, from Lebanon, from France, what's going on? So it caused like a turmoil because it wasn't, and my big fear about even sharing it was, what if this isn't the heart? And now everyone knows I'm a broken person. You know what I mean? That you always wonder about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it confirms. I have always been a donor. On your license, you put, are you an organ donor? Yes or no? And I have always believed in it because you hear the stories and just think, wow, what a gift.
What a gift.
Oh my gosh. And then to hear your story, it's just, I hope people consider doing that. I am just curious because you're a volunteer, or you're still a volunteer, right?
Yep.
Okay.
For Intermountain Donor. Yep.
Intermountain Donor. Is it hard to get donors? Do you know how long the waiting list typically is for people? You said yours was fairly quickly and you were lucky.
People can be living donors, and I think people forget about that. So kidneys are a big need, and we have 2 kidneys. And so if you donate one, the other one will still function. There are a lot of things. And I know a realtor who donated part of her liver to her husband. And so because he couldn't find a match and they were a match. So there are ways that you can do that. But for a liver and a heart, for the major donor organs, there has to go from, the body has to be alive. So the brain has to be functioning and the organs have to be moving. Somebody who's possibly brain dead, that the organs can be transferred because it has to be done within a 5-hour period to be able to be received properly. So it has to move pretty quickly. But people don't realize, honestly, I didn't know how sick I was until after I got my new heart.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't realize walking, kids progressively get worse, right? So it took 16 years for me to get worse. And for me, it was, like you said, I'm getting old. I'm just getting weak. The spider stairs is kicking my butt, but you think, oh, it's just because I'm out of shape. It's not because my heart wasn't going well. It was always because of me, right? So I realized that, wow, walking across the street isn't a chore. I shouldn't be heavy. I shouldn't be winded. You know what I mean? Some of the things that I take for granted now. I used to go to sleep, especially when my husband was deployed, and hope that I'd wake up in the morning to be able to take care of my son because you just don't know. And so there's no greater gift than a donor, whether living or passed away. There is no greater gift.